Hello and welcome to my review of Forza Horizon 5. All the gameplay in this video was captured on an Xbox Series S, but of course it's available on all other Xbox consoles, PC and XCloud. Remember, if you enjoy this video or find it useful, I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel. It makes a huge difference and really does help smaller channels like mine to get seen. So, what is Forza Horizon 5? Well, it's an open-world racing game that a lot of people have dubbed a car PG due to its RPG progression elements. As you can probably tell, it's the 5th Horizon game in the series, which itself is a spin-off from the Forza Motorsport series. The difference is that the Horizon games are played in an open world and are far more arcade feeling. The Motorsport games, on the other hand, are played on single tracks which are based on real-life locations, and they're based on simulation-style racing, much like Gran Turismo. When it comes to Forza Horizon 5, there is a lot to this game, and I'll try to give you as much detail as possible without overloading you with information. So let's do a quick overview first, and then we'll get into the details. As I said, Forza Horizon 5 is an open-world racing game, and it functions a lot like other non-racing open-world games. When you first boot up the game, you'll create a basic character and then pick a car from a small selection. You're then quickly dropped, literally, into some story-based races that give you a quick taste of what's to come. After that, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want. The open world contains many events, races, and points of interest to check out, as well as hub areas to unlock that serve as fast travel locations. These hub areas also work as synchronization points from games like Assassin's Creed, in the sense that when you unlock them, they reveal the events and points of interests around them. As you work your way around the map, playing literally whatever you want in any order you want, you'll gain XP for your driver and accolade stars, which sort of represent your fame in the game world. XP does exactly what you'd think and levels you up, granting various rewards. As I said, the accolade stars you gain gauge your fame and reputation within the Horizon Festival. The more stars and fame you have, the more events and hub areas that become available. During all of this, you'll constantly be gaining skill XP as well for simply driving around. Almost everything you do will give you skill XP and can be seen at the top of the screen in the middle. Once you gain enough skill XP, you'll gain a skill point, which can be spent on any car that you own to unlock permanent and consumable perks. So now let's take a look at some of these aspects of the game in more detail. The open world is completely explorable from the start of the game and allows you to do whatever you want freely. There are many different types of events and races to choose from, including standard races, street races, cross-country, rally, and more. Each of these has different recommended cars, such as a 4x4 for cross-country as an example, but you can generally use whatever you want or purchase a car with in-game money. The game actually contains over 500 cars for you to collect and modify from many well-known brands such as Ford, Chevrolet, Honda, Lamborghini, and Ferrari. Some races are played on looping tracks with laps, and some are simple point A to point B races. They can all be played solo, against bots, or against other online players. It's completely up to you. As you drive around the world outside of a race, you'll find small publicity stunt events that you can participate in. These include large stunt ramps where the goal is to jump a certain distance, speed cameras that you want to run through as fast as possible, and drift zones that give you a small section of road to perform drifts on for points. These events all have a star rating from 1 to 3 and preset thresholds for these ratings. The better you do, the more stars you earn, and it's important to note that this star rating is different from the accolade stars that I mentioned earlier. If you get a 3-star rating in a drift zone, for example, you may be rewarded with 500 accolade stars. When you hit a specific threshold of accolade stars, you'll be given a choice of where to open a new Horizon Festival hub or which one you'd like to expand. Both of these choices open up new events, races, and sometimes larger special events. The special events can be things like endurance races that can sometimes take up to 20 minutes of real-time racing to complete. It may also be something really wild and out there, like racing down the side of an active volcano or trying to beat a pack of jet skis to the finish line. You'll also be able to take on some minor side quest style events that have you helping a specific character with a project. Early on, you're given one of these events that revolve around a Volkswagen Beetle. First, you'll be asked to find the lost and wrecked car out in the open world. Once you've found it, you'll be asked to return it to the NPC's garage in a flatbed truck. She then restores it, modifies it, and has you doing various tasks in order to test it out. All of the steps are presented as chapters, so you can dip in and out of them as you wish, and there's a good number of them scattered throughout the map. Occasionally, you'll receive a call from one of the game's NPCs letting you know about a rumor of a rare abandoned car somewhere in the open world. This is the game's barn find system. On the game's map, you'll see a large purple circle, and the barn that you're looking for is hidden somewhere within that circle. Once you find it and drive up to it, you'll get a short cutscene explaining what you found, and then after a certain amount of time has passed, the car will be restored and added to your collection. Earlier on I mentioned the skill XP that you gain by doing pretty much anything in your car, from drifts to jumps to drafting to passing other cars and many more things besides. These skills can be stacked and multiplied to build up a huge amount of skill XP, but you need to be careful not to crash, because if you do, you lose the entire combo and all of the skill XP will vanish. If you do manage to bank the skill XP, however, you'll notice that you'll be filling a small circular skill meter at the top of the screen, and when it's completely filled, you get a skill point. These skill points can be spent on perks for any car in your collection, and each car has a different set of perks to unlock. Some of these perks are permanent and some of them are consumable. The permanent perks usually increase types of skill XP gains, and the consumable perks normally grant bonus player XP for 10 races or give you a free spin on the prize wheel. Now, the prize wheel may elicit some fears of microtransactions or loot boxes from some players, myself included, but no, there's no way to pay real money for these wheel spins. You do get one every time you level up and as a reward for other events in the game. The prizes on the wheel range from emotes to rare cars to clothes for your character to in-game cash and more. Speaking of your character, after the game's intro races, you're free to go back and customize your driver with clothes, accessories, and emotes that you've unlocked or purchased from the in-game shop with in-game credits. There's a wide range of options, and while it doesn't apply to me personally at all, I do want to mention that there is a lot of options for different people from all walks of life. You can create your character with many different prosthetics, change your pronouns, and wear anything you want regardless of who you are. And continuing the theme of customization, there is an absolutely ridiculous amount of options for your cars. There's vinyl wraps, paint, body kits, tires, alloys, spoilers, engines, suspensions, and so much more. Basically, if you can name something related to cars, it's probably in this game. Not to mention it has a huge community library of car designs, paint jobs, and even custom races. It also has this, I don't really know what this is, honestly. It seems to be some really in-depth car tuning options that I do not understand at all. I haven't ever personally driven a car, so I have no idea about most things to do with them. I guess I'm just a fan of how certain cars look, and also when they're used in various types of media, you know, like the cars in the Michael Bay Transformers movies or the James Bond cars, for example, that kind of thing. There is of course a ton of online modes to get stuck into. I don't personally play online very much, but you can join clubs, race against other players, explore the open world with friends, and of course create your own car designs, paint jobs, and events to share with other people all around the world. I should also mention that you can go into the game's shop and use real money to buy a car pass, which is essentially a season pass that gives you new cars as they're released, or you can buy individual packs of cars if that's something you're comfortable doing. There's also constant live events that work on a seasonal system that gives you challenges to complete in a specific time frame to earn exclusive rewards. The seasons are spring, summer, autumn and winter, and they only last for one real-time week each, resetting every Thursday, so you get 4 seasons in one real-time month. Another feature of the seasons that's worth noting is that they actually change the in-game weather. It snows in winter, for example, and changes how roads and races play out because the tracks are covered in snow. And the last things I want to mention is that the game really wants you to drive on every single road in the game, and it does keep track of where you've been by highlighting it on your map. All of the roads are greyed out to begin with, but as you drive down streets they'll turn white and off-road areas will turn red. There's also bonus boards to find out in the world, and all you need to do to collect them is break them with your car. Some boards offer fast travel spots and some give you various amounts of XP. The game also has a photo mode which I've already seen online has produced some incredible shots and images. And okay, that was quite a lot of stuff to go over, and I know I've left out a few minor things here and there, but in the interest of time, I think it's best to move on to the personal opinion part of the review, and let's start with what I liked. I've said this before on the channel, but remember the following positives and negative points aren't a full list of everything that's good and bad in this game. It's just some of the things that really stood out to me personally, and I'm saying that because this one is going to be a little bit one-sided. I genuinely love this game, and I say that as a guy who doesn't play that many racing games and has never driven a real car and generally doesn't really know that much about them. There really isn't going to be much I can say in the negative section, but I'll try to think of something that bothered me or might become an issue for other people. So I think the first point for me has got to be the visuals and the presentation. The open world is incredibly detailed and just beautiful at times. It has a really well done day-night cycle, and let me tell you, racing through some of the city streets at night with the amber glow of the city all around you is just so amazing. And remember, I'm playing on a Series S at 1080p 60 FPS, and it looks so good. If you're lucky enough to have a Series X or a high-end PC, then you can probably enjoy this in full 4K, and I genuinely envy you. The cars themselves are just so well modeled, and they're nigh on photorealistic. They don't actually model the undersides of the cars though, they're just kind of flat, but I think that's fine honestly. You can even admire any of the cars up close and open all the doors, look at the engine, sit in the driver's seat and look around the inside of the car, and I genuinely don't know how many more times I can say it, but it just looks brilliant. It's got to be a total dream for actual car enthusiasts. Plus, when you add in all the customization options, paint jobs, body kits and all that other stuff, it's just endless. Personally, I really like Honda and Acura cars, and not because I think they're the best or anything, just because my family has always had Hondas since I was young, and I don't know, I guess I just kind of developed a liking for them for some reason, bit of nostalgia I guess. So yeah, I quite enjoyed collecting those, and I actually quite enjoyed customizing some of the cars in the game that I know have been used as Transformers vehicle modes, kind of like this Lamborghini Countach. I put the Autobot logo on it. I don't know, I just think it's really cool, it's really fun to do that. Another thing that I really love about this game specifically is how it mixes a typical open world RPG with a driving sim. I'm pretty sure there are some other games out there that do this kind of thing, but never to this high standard. It just feels so fulfilling to play, because you're always progressing no matter what you do. Nothing at all feels superfluous. It does make me wonder if some of the systems from this game could be learned from and perhaps adapted into standard open world action RPGs somehow. It really does offer complete freedom, and I think some games that try to offer that end up falling short, mainly because when you venture away from the story or the side missions, there isn't always a lot to discover. Of course, some games do better with this than others, but in this game, simply driving from one event to another gives you something, and that for me was a very satisfying part of the overall experience. As I've already said, I don't know much about driving, and I don't play that many racing games, especially the more realistic ones. That said, I'm not sure if other racing games have something like this, so you'll have to let me know, but I find this game's driving line assistant to be invaluable. It overlays the best possible driving line onto the road and even shows you when to brake for corners. The line is normally blue, which means you can basically floor it, but when you come to a corner, the line will turn yellow, then orange and then red to show you when and how hard to brake. It's such a helpful little thing, and it's easy to follow, but of course if you don't need it or don't want it, you can simply turn it off. In fact, there's a novel's worth of settings you can change to tailor everything to the kind of experience that you want to have, including a wide range of difficulty settings. And so I really can't say too much more in this section without just repeating myself. I really do love pretty much everything about it, but I was able to see a few things that I didn't like, so let's talk about those now. Firstly, and I know this is a completely personal thing, I didn't like the music in the game at all. There's not a single track on any of the game's radio stations that I personally liked, and that is a bit disappointing. The game has quite a few different radio stations that represent various genres of music, and even though I've always been understanding of other people's views and opinions, when it comes to music, I'm honestly a little bit limited in my tastes. I just kinda like what I like, and while I respect other types of music, I only listen to one type. In my spare time, I literally only listen to metalcore, so bands like Wage War, As I Lay Dying, Killswitch Engage, Trivium, Cold Rain, you get the idea. I usually just turn off the radio in the game, and it isn't really a big deal to me, but it would have been cool to have some licensed songs that I liked in the game, but it's fine in general I think. And something else that stood out is the character models of the NPCs. Now the open world looks very nice and the cars look virtually real, and obviously that's where most of the effort went and where the developers shine. But you do occasionally see your driver character and some other NPCs in cutscenes, and I just don't think they look very good. And some of the voice acting is a little bit hit and miss as well, but they're passable, and I guess you don't see them that often. And I'm kind of struggling for negatives, so I thought I'd just mention this. This next issue comes from doing some research into what other people may have found annoying and doesn't really come from me personally. I pretty much always play this kind of game on the normal difficulty, mainly because, well, I'm frankly not that good at racing games, especially ones that lean into realism. But I have read that a lot of the more advanced players are not too happy with the AI of the drivatars on the higher difficulties. And for those of you that don't know, the drivatars are the bots that you play against during solo races, and they work a little bit like ghosts in other racing games. The game is always recording driving data for every real-life player and improving how their drivatar races in other players' worlds. Over time, they're actually supposed to mimic how the real player would drive, but on higher difficulties, they apparently just seem to be cheating to win. I've seen many reports of some cars just being flat out faster than what should be possible, and some races being literally impossible to win no matter what you do. Although interestingly enough, I've seen the almost universal agreement that this wasn't ever a problem in Forza Horizon 4, but for some reason, it's become a problem in Forza Horizon 5. Now, of course, this doesn't really bother me or my gameplay experience, but I know some people take racing games very seriously and some people want a real challenge, so I thought it was worth mentioning. Lastly, I'm just going to touch on the monetization and one other thing that you should consider. The monetization, while unnecessary, doesn't feel anywhere near as predatory or scummy as it does in other games. I mean, do I wish all games were just complete and didn't have any DLC unless it was a large expansion? Yes, of course I do. Is that how the world works or how the industry's going? No, it isn't. But you know, as a reviewer, I feel like it's my job to let you know what kind of monetization a game has. You all know my thoughts on it, I don't like it, but what can you spend your money on in Forza Horizon 5? Well, there's a VIP pass that gives you an advantage in progression, some car packs, and some expansions coming at a later date. Honestly though, in my many hours with the game, this stuff never felt forced or pushed on me, so I have to give them credit for that, I guess. And yeah, I'd much rather that all the cars just be in the game, but at the same time, this full game is available on Game Pass, so I mean, even with the cost of the Game Pass subscription and the cost of some DLC, it's still probably cheaper than buying a full price game for £50 or $60. And one last thing to consider is the size of the game. It's a 101GB download, which took me around 7 to 8 hours to complete. That's not exactly a negative of the game, but there are plenty of people out there with slow internet or data caps, so this is worth knowing. And I think that'll do it for the negative section, so let's move on to the conclusion. If someone was to ask me to describe Forza Horizon 5 in one word, there's a lot of choices that would come to mind. Impeccable, incredible, exquisite, perhaps even masterpiece. Whatever word I choose, the sentiment will remain the same. The game is, in my opinion, one of the best racing games of all time, and if you have the means to play it, I really recommend that you give it a try. It just has so much depth and more customization than anyone could reasonably ever want. But at the same time, you can just pick a car at random and race with zero issues. You don't even have to get that deep into it. It's got to be the most accessible racing game I've ever played, if not one of the most accessible games in general. And ultimately, even if you aren't really into racing games or cars but you do enjoy RPGs, I would still recommend it to you. It's that good. It has a beautiful open world, a huge selection of expertly modeled cars, and a vast amount of content to enjoy. I don't believe that any game is perfect, but what I do believe is that Forza Horizon 5 comes pretty damn close. And so there you go, that's my review of Forza Horizon 5. It's available right now for all Xbox consoles, PC, and XCloud. If you have any questions or perhaps there's something that I missed that you'd like to know about, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, I hope today will be the day that I earn your subscription, and if you want to support the channel even further, all the important links are in the video description down below. But with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.